Jack Sullivan was halfway through his second cup of black coffee when the text came in. "Dad," that's all the contact said. No emoji, no punctuation. Just a man who treated words like dollars. Only spent them when he absolutely had to. "When you've got time, come down. Got something I want to talk to you about, man to man." Jack stared at the screen a little longer than he should have. It wasn't the words that got him. It was how few there were. His father wasn't the type to reach out for small talk. No, how's work? No, how's the kids? Just straight to the point. Like always. Man to man. God, how many times had he heard that phrase growing up? Usually right before some hard lesson about life, money, or getting up before sunrise. Jack leaned back in his chair in his Austin apartment, all glass and metal and quiet. So far from the house he grew up in. A creaky little place off Highway 87 in Fredericksburg where everything smelled like sawdust and diesel. He hadn't been back in a while. Not because he was angry, but because, what was there to go back to? It was only a 2-hour drive from Austin to Fredericksburg, but for Jack, it might as well have been another life. Another planet. The city disappeared behind him, glass towers shrinking in the rearview mirror, until all that was left were open fields, rusty fences, and that big Texas sky swallowing him whole. He passed the familiar sights without even meaning to. Mrs. Carter's roadside peach stand, closed for the season. The old high school football stadium, still proudly boasting the 1997 state championship on the weathered sign. And then, there it was, the wooden sign at the edge of town. "Welcome to Fredericksburg, where Texas roots run deep." Roots. Yeah, they sure as hell did. As he pulled up to the old house, Jack felt that familiar knot in his stomach tighten. Nothing had changed. The same dented mailbox he'd accidentally hit with a baseball bat when he was 12. The same wind chimes on the front porch, still slightly off-key because his father refused to fix them. Said it gave them character. And then there was the truck. A battered Ford F-150 that looked like it had survived 2 wars and a tornado. His father's truck. Paint peeling. Tools rattling around in the bed. Sticker on the back window. God, guns, and grit. Jack cut the engine and sat there for a second, staring at the front door. He realized then, it wasn't fear that kept him away all these years. It was knowing that this man, Walter Sullivan, had never once told him he was proud. Never once said, "I'm glad you made it." Not when Jack got his degree. Not when Jack landed his first tech job. Not even when Jack became CTO of a company worth more money than this whole damn town combined. Walter Sullivan believed in hard work. Sweat. Calloused hands. Not soft, things like pride or compliments. That's just how men were raised around here. Jack stepped out of the car. Gravel crunched beneath his boots. The screen door creaked open before he even made it to the porch. And there he was. Walter Sullivan. 65. Built like oak. Weathered by sun and time. Gray hair that looked like steel wool. Frown lines deep enough to plant seeds in. "Didn't think you'd come this quick," his father said, not quite looking him in the eye. Jack shrugged. "Figured if you were actually texting me. Must be serious." Walter grunted, that universal old man sound that meant a lot and nothing all at once. They stood there for a beat, 2 men with the same stubborn jawline, the same broad shoulders, separated by years of silence that neither of them really knew how to cross. Finally, Walter gestured toward the back patio. "Come on, let's sit. Got something I gotta lay on ya." As Jack followed his father around the side of the house, past the familiar smell of cut cedar and old motor oil, a strange thought hit him. Maybe this wasn't going to be one of those life lesson talks. Maybe this time, it wasn't about him proving something to his father. Maybe, just maybe, for the first time in his life, his father was the one who needed him. They sat out back, like they always used to, just 2 men, 2 folding chairs, and a beat-up cooler with a couple of Shinerbach beers sweating in the Texas heat. Walter didn't say anything for a long time. Jack didn't push him. Out here, words had weight. And Walter Sullivan wasn't the type to waste them. Finally, after a long pull from his beer, the old man leaned back and let out a slow exhale, like he was trying to let go of something heavier than just air. "It's getting bad, son." Jack didn't say a word, just waited. "The shop," Walter started, his voice rough like gravel roads. "Ain't what it used to be." Jack didn't need to ask which shop. Sullivan Auto Repair had been around longer than Jack had been alive. Hell, longer than most of Fredericksburg's new residents had been Texans. That old garage on Main Street had patched up everything from pickup trucks to tractor engines. Walter's name was good as gold around here. Or it used to be. Walter took another drink. These new companies out of Austin, these kids with their apps and websites, they're eating us alive. Folks don't come round like they used to. Not when they can click a button and some slick-looking van shows up with a guy in a uniform and a tablet. Jack could hear the bitterness buried under his father's calm. This wasn't about money, not really. This was about pride. About watching the world move on without you. Walter shook his head. They got apps for everything now. Schedule a repair. Pay with your damn phone. Leave a 5-star review if they wipe your cup holder clean. He snorted, the sound dry and humorless. Me? He tapped his chest. I got no website. No email. Hell, I don't even take cards. Cash or check. That's the way it's always been. Jack finally spoke. That's why you called me. It wasn't a question. Walter's jaw clenched, the way it always did when he hated the truth. I didn't call you for a handout. I didn't say you did. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was just real. Walter rubbed his hands together. Thick, scarred things, shaped by wrenches, not keyboards. I got 5 men working for me. Been with me over 20 years. I pay him fair. I treat him right. But this new world. He trailed off, staring out at the horizon like he was watching the sun set on everything he'd built. I ain't about to sell out to some goddamn tech company. Not for a quick payday. Not for some fancy logo or app. Jack could feel it, that old, stubborn pride running through the Sullivan bloodline like barbed wire. I built that shop with my hands, Walter said quietly. That means something. Or at least, it used to. Jack sat there for a long time. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own family. Because now he saw it plain as day. His father wasn't just fighting a business problem. He was fighting extinction. A man like Walter Sullivan wasn't wired for the digital world. He wasn't wired for marketing campaigns or SEO or online booking. He was wired for work, for loyalty, for standing by your word when nobody's looking. But even men like that, even legends in small towns, couldn't outwrench an algorithm. And Walter knew it. That was the hardest part. Not losing money, not losing customers, but losing a world that made sense. Jack looked down at his own hands, soft compared to his father's, hands that built software instead of engines. Different tools, same fight. He cracked open another beer and handed it to Walter. I'm not here to change you, Jack said quietly. I'm here to keep you alive. Walter looked over at him, really looked at him, for the first time all day. And for a second, just a second, Jack saw it. Pride. Not in himself, not in the past, but in the man his son had become. A man who hadn't forgotten where he came from. Jack didn't sleep that night. He sat on the old porch long after his father had gone to bed. The Shiner Bock bottles glistening under the porch light like quiet ghosts of every man who ever sat there wondering what the hell to do next. This wasn't just about saving a business. This was about saving a man like Walter Sullivan, a dying breed in a world moving too fast for its own damn good. But Jack didn't come back to Texas empty-handed. He never did. 2 weeks later, Jack sat in a glass-walled office 40 miles away, downtown Austin, inside the headquarters of Green Branch, the fastest-growing landscaping and facilities company in the region. They weren't just cutting grass. They were designing smart irrigation systems, managing properties with drone mapping, and hiring veterans of old trades to do honest work, but backed by new tech. Jack liked that about them. He sat across from Emily Tran, the sharpest negotiator in Green Branch, a woman who built her own empire without ever forgetting where she came from. You're telling me, Emily said slowly, tapping a pen on her notebook, you want us to acquire Sullivan & Sons, a 5-bay auto shop in Fredericksburg, on the edge of going under? Jack didn't flinch. I'm telling you it's not just a shop. It's a landmark. It's a community trust. And the men working there? They know more about machines and loyalty than any algorithm will ever teach you. Emily raised an eyebrow. What's the catch? Jack leaned forward. You keep every man on the payroll. No layoffs. No rebranding. The name stays. The sign stays. And Walter Sullivan stays, not as a figurehead, but as regional operations advisor. Let him do what he does best, lead men. Train the next generation. Emily studied him. And what do you get out of this? Jack smiled faintly. I get peace of mind. It wasn't that simple, of course. Deals like that never are. But Jack knew what buttons to push. Not greed, not vanity, but legacy. And Green Branch, for all their growth-hungry ambitions, respected legacy. By the end of the month, the papers were signed. Walter Sullivan never saw it coming. Jack broke the news on a Sunday morning. Same porch, same chairs. But this time, it was different. Walter sat there, squinting at the thick folder Jack slid across the table like it weighed more than both of them combined. What the hell is this? Jack kept his voice steady. It's your future. And theirs. He nodded toward the garage, toward the men who had stood beside his father through broken engines, hot summers, and slow winters. Walter flipped through the documents, Green Branch logos, operational agreements, letters of employment. You sold me out. Walter's voice cracked, not in anger, but in something worse. Pride wounded, dignity fraying. Jack shook his head. I sold you in. Silence. He let the words hang there. I didn't come back to watch you go down with the ship, Dad. I came back to give you a bigger one. Walter's hands, those scarred, oil-stained hands, hovered over the papers like they didn't know whether to throw them or bless them. You'll still run the shop, Jack said quietly. Your way, your people. But now, with backup, with health insurance, with resources, with respect. Walter exhaled. Long, slow, like a man laying down a burden he didn't know he was carrying. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time in his life, accepting help didn't feel like surrender. But Jack wasn't done. Not even close. While the deal with Green Branch secured the past, Jack was already building the future. He called it Ironwood Tech, named after the hardest damn wood in Texas, roots deep, impossible to break. Ironwood would be a software company built for the forgotten, for every small family business in the South that didn't know how to navigate apps, marketing funnels, or digital payments. Auto shops, barber shops, plumbers, mechanics, farmers, real people, real hands, real stories. Ironwood wouldn't replace them. It would protect them, help them compete without losing their soul. And if Jack had learned anything sitting on that old porch, it was this. Some things are worth fighting for. Some names deserve to stay on the front of the building. And some fathers, no matter how stubborn, no matter how proud, deserve to know that the world didn't leave them behind. Not if their sons have anything to say about it. Jack waited until the garage went quiet. The last sound was the screech of the old metal shutter rolling down. Tools clattered somewhere in the dark. The air smelled of grease, gasoline, and something heavier, like history hanging in the walls. Walter stepped out from the shadows. Oil-stained shirt, calloused hands, dark from decades of engine work. His body shaped by labor, not luxury. Jack was already sitting there, on the same cracked plastic chair he used to wait on as a kid, back when he'd sit for hours watching his dad patch tires for truckers. Between them lay the folder. The contract. $1.5 million. An offer to buy the garage. An offer to let Walter retire. Rest. Maybe for the first time in 40 years. But Walter didn't sit. Didn't even look at the papers. He stood there, like a rusted steel beam, still holding up a collapsing roof. You think I busted my back under these cars all my life? Just so you could sell this place to some pencil pushers with a spreadsheet? His voice was raw, not angry at the money. Angry at what it symbolized. Jack didn't flinch. Didn't push back. He just looked at his father, with a tired sadness in his eyes. I'm not trying to sell it, Dad. A pause. I'm trying to save it. Walter scoffed. Save it from what? Kids these days watch TikTok tutorials on how to change their own damn oil. They learn how to swap spark plugs on YouTube in 5 minutes. Jack stayed quiet for a beat, then said, slowly, like every word was a bolt tightened by hand. Save it from becoming just another empty shell. Walter went quiet. This garage used to be his church. The place where men with cracked heels and dirty hands brought six-packs on Friday nights, swapping dirty jokes while tightening lug nuts. But now, customers pay with apps. Electric cars hum by without a sound. This garage, his life's work, was becoming a museum of a world that didn't exist anymore. Jack looked around, peeling paint on the walls, crooked price boards, old machinery lying around like fallen soldiers after a war. I learned everything here, Jack said softly. Not just how to fix engines. I learned how to stand back up when nobody believed in me. Walter exhaled hard, like an old animal cornered in a world it no longer recognized. And now you want to paint it up all pretty? Turn this place into some Instagram showroom for city folks. Jack shook his head. I want to keep its soul, but give it a real chance to survive. Walter looked down at his hands. Rough, scarred, marked by a life of labor. Hands that built something nobody else cared to build. Finally, for the first time that night, he sat down. "If I say yes, what's your condition?" Jack smiled. Not wide, just the kind of smile that means something deep. "We keep the old sign outside." Walter laughed, for the first time in years, rough and surprised. "That rusty old thing? The wind damn near tore it down last winter." Jack nodded. "I don't want people to forget your name." Silence stretched between them. Walter stared into his son's eyes, seeing not a boy, but a man forged in the same heat, the same struggle. "If you're gonna fix this place, if you're gonna make it live again," his voice dropped to a gravelly whisper, "then don't you ever forget? Everything here started with these dirty hands." Jack stood up. He didn't stand like someone who won. He stood like someone who was proud of where he came from. "I won't forget, Dad. Not ever." A few days after that night in the garage, Jack came back to find the folder gone. No words, no announcement, just a faint oil smudge left on the empty workbench and a signature on the dotted line. Walter Sullivan had signed. Maybe he did it in the quiet of early morning, long before the first coffee. Maybe he sat there alone in the dark, staring at the names on the contract like ghosts of old friends. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd always known he would. But that's how men like Walter did things. Loud hearts, quiet decisions. A few weeks later, folks in town started noticing something strange. Walter, who hadn't bought a new vehicle since Clinton was president, was now driving a brand new GMC Sierra down Main Street. Not fancy, not showy. Still a pickup truck, still workmanlike, but clean, shiny, rumbling with quiet power. No chrome rims, no flashy paint job, just one subtle detail that said everything. A small, custom-engraved metal plate near the back bumper. It read, "Walter Sullivan, since '78. Old-timers at the diner shook their heads, grinning. Hell froze over. One of them chuckled over black coffee. That stubborn old bastard finally upgraded. But those who really knew Walter understood. That truck wasn't about showing off. It was about something else. It was about dignity. About closing one chapter without erasing the fingerprints from the last." Meanwhile, Jack moved fast. Ironwood Tech, the little software startup he'd been building quietly in the background, announced its first major partnership. Green Branch, the very same landscaping giant he'd sold his father's garage to. But this deal wasn't about oil changes or tire rotations anymore. Ironwood Tech was designing tools for family businesses like Sullivan's, real-time scheduling apps, custom invoicing, inventory systems, built not for the Silicon Valley crowd, but for small-town owners who still kept ledgers in their back pockets. And when Jack stood on stage at a tech conference in Austin, jeans, boots, no tie, he said one thing that made headlines the next morning. Ironwood isn't about replacing hard work. It's about protecting it. Behind him, on the big screen, was a photo of the old garage. Faded, weathered, still standing. And then came the final surprise. Green Branch announced a new honorary role. Regional Advisor for Texas Hill Country. Walter Sullivan. No corporate email. No desk job. Just respect. A lifetime pass to walk into any shop, any garage, any family business in the region and say, "Son, you might want to tighten that bolt a little more." Somewhere deep down, maybe even deeper than he'd admit, Walter was proud. Not because of the money, not because of the title, but because Jack hadn't sold out. He'd done something harder. He'd built a bridge between the old world and the new, and walked across it with muddy boots. The last time Jack visited the garage before the official handover, he found his dad sitting on the tailgate of the new Sierra, drinking a Shiner Bock. Walter didn't say much. Didn't have to. But as Jack got in his truck to leave, Walter called out, "Hey." Jack turned. Walter raised his beer slightly. "I don't say this kind of crap often, but your mama would have been real damn proud." Jack smiled. That same small, quiet smile. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." And with that, no fireworks, no grand speeches, just the fading hum of a pickup truck rolling down a Texas road at sunset. The story of Sullivan's garage didn't end. It simply turned the page. Jack didn't leave right away that night. Something about the way his father sat there, quiet, steady, bottle of Shiner Bock resting on the tailgate, made him pause. For years, there had been distance between them. Not anger. Not resentment, just space. The kind of space that grows when words are left unsaid for too long. But tonight felt different. Walter looked over, eyes squinting in the dying Texas light. "You know," he said, voice rough like old gravel roads. Wasn't sure about all this tech stuff of yours. Jack let out a dry laugh. I figured. Walter nodded slowly. But I've been wrong before. Hell, I was wrong about your mother once. Thought she'd never go out with a grease-stained fool like me. That almost pulled a real smile from Jack. And then, without warning, without ceremony, Walter stood up, walked over, held out his hand. Calloused, weathered, strong. Not a handshake to seal a deal. Not a handshake for show. But a handshake that said, I see you now. I understand. Jack took it. And in that moment, between oil-stained fingers and a heart that finally let its guard down, everything old and new found their place. Out here, under the Texas stars, that's how respect is built. Not with titles, not with money, but with hard work, hard truths, and sometimes with a simple handshake between two stubborn men who finally understand each other.